Hey everybody, it's Glenn, back in this video with the Marvel Legends Ultron, Hulk and Vision triple pack. Target exclusive in the US I believe, but it's washed onto British shores via Kapow Toys. Here they are all out of packaging. I won't string reviews of them out over consecutive videos, so consider this your one-stop shop for a closer look at them all. Some interesting comic takes on a trio of characters prominent in the Avengers Age of Ultron movie. Let's kick it off with Ultron. Reading from the packaging back, behind his menacing red eyes there is no mercy. Nothing will stop Ultron from controlling the world. Nothing? Huh? The Avengers. Love the metallic finish on this, then sculpted in relief as semi-spheres painted a deep red, then on the torso they have detail over that in lighter shade. Not sure what they are, but the effect to me looks like pulsing orbs of energy. It's cool. Much less attention paid to the deco on the back. I guess if you're gonna budget the deco anywhere, best to contain it on the front, but come on, this is a dimensional figure, not flat comic art. You can even picture the imaginary line they drew at the factory down the legs, separating the front that received the deco and the back that didn't, with those semi-orb bulges not receiving the red deco on the reverse. I can see some folk not liking the feet as they are large, but I like the design of them, adds to an inhumanoid feeling. Inhumanoid or insectoid, as here this figure is the Ultimate Beetle from the Spider-Man Infinite series Ultimate Green Goblin wave. It's not often Hasbro give comic characters an all-new sculpt, and for Ultimate Beetle of all characters to get just that struck me as odd back then, especially when it's a design with details not making it flexible to becoming other characters. But finally, a giant light bulb must have lit up over Hasbro HQ when they found a use for it now as Ultron. For me, Ultron's villainy puts him in a league with the likes of Doctor Doom and Magneto, not to mention his cinematic debut this year has only raised his profile, and as such it's a bit sad to see him be demoted to a head stuck on another figure's body. And sure, we can all complain about part reuse, but as long as it's effective, then that should silence complaints. And if you want a more modern comic book Ultron, I think this is effectively just that. Important to point out, he does have different lower arms to the Ultimate Beetle. Not sure if those are new here or reused from a different figure. Anybody recognize them? This isn't the first time Ultron has been a recipient of a new head on a reused body, with one coming in the Ironmonger Bath wave back when the last Iron Man movie came out, I believe. The metallic finish on that one read less like adamantium and more like kitchen foil. That one was a redecoed titanium man, and the complexity in the design of that body didn't really suit the more classic head, with Ultron classically having a simple and sleek design. The head sculpt of the new one is certainly more modern looking, and the complex sculpt of the Ultimate Beetle body suits the head, making for a more uniform modern Ultron design. Absent on the older Ultron was the deco in the mouth of not sure what you'd call it, but what I assume is rippling energy inside Ultron, here rendered in the newer one. If anything, he is short and as such perhaps better suited to being an Ultron drone, and if this set hits discount the way the previous Target set did, I can see people army building Ultron drones to no end. It is shorter than the Ironmonger one. In my collection I used the Marvel Select Ultron as my Ultron Prime, fudging its 7-inch scale into my 6-inch scale collection. Sure, it's big, but then the size of robots are not limited by flesh and bone, and an illustration of that being the Ultron Bath that came with the Ant-Man Infinite series was taller than even the Select. Now looking at Ultron's articulation, the head rotates side to side, he's able to look down a real decent amount, and he's also able to look up a decent amount. At the shoulder, the arm rotates, and then it moves up to, well, less than a right angle to the body. There's upper arm rotation, then there's a double jointed elbow. At the wrist it rotates, and it's also hinged, moving down and up. There's waist rotation. There's an ab crunch, which moves a decent amount forward, but doesn't really move too far back. At the hips, the legs move out to the side, well, a disappointing amount. They move forward much more though, and they also move surprisingly far back. There's upper leg rotation, then a double jointed knee, no lower leg rotation, but then the ankles are hinged, moving the feet backwards and forwards. Plus they have an awesome ankle rocker pivot. Alas, with the relatively limited hip articulation, he isn't able to take full advantage of that ankle pivot, with this being his widest stance possible, still with both feet flat on the floor. And now Hulk. Reading from the packaging back, Ultron has awakened Bruce Banner's rage and the Hulk won't stop until Ultron is no more. Not sure why they've intertwined Hulk's blurb with Ultron, I mean other than them both being in this same set. Hulk is the character that raises the profile of the set, as no doubt even your dear old grandma doing her shopping at Target would recognise him. This being the recent Doc Green incarnation of the Hulk, for those keeping track, that's a super intelligent Hulk. Similarly to Hulk in the recent Avengers movie, the ripped and torn pants have been exchanged for meggings. In fact, this essentially is the movie Hulk from the Legends Thanos wave. As such, the sculpted details of those meggings doesn't sit that well with me. I mean, the attention to detail I expect from a movie version, but the detailed texture is less fitting for a comic incarnation, which artistically I would expect to be broader and more simple in detail. Not to mention the problems I had with this movie Hulk when I reviewed it have not been resolved here. So the arms were originally made for the Hulk figure from the first Avengers movie and have a texture that isn't on the torso, with that torso being sculpted newly for the second movie and sculpted completely smooth. And it's not just a textural mismatch, it's colour too, as opposed to the movie Hulk with its more naturalistic olive skin tone. I like that they have gone for a brighter comic colour skin tone, yet on its arms compared to the torso, a mismatch in the tone is noticeable. Taking a closer look, and Doc Green Hulk is clearly smart enough to know how to use a comb with slicking back his hair. Later, Doc Green adopted a slicked back mohawk, which would have been cool to see, but maybe this went into production before Hulk adopted that look. With this being the smartest Hulk ever, it would have been good to have a face sculpt reflecting that. Instead, we get one more rage-filled and typically Hulk. But then I guess smarts doesn't mean he still can't get PO'd and kick ass, I suppose. Now looking at articulation, and the head rotates side to side, it is on a ball joint and has no neck hinge, so there's very little movement of the head forwards and backwards. At the shoulder, the arm rotates and it moves up at a real decent amount. There's upper arm rotation, then a double jointed elbow. At the wrist there's rotation, and it also has a hinge moving the hand down and up. There is no waist rotation, but in lieu of that he has a rotating diaphragm joint, which also moves this far forward and this far back. At the hips, the legs move out a real decent amount. You do have to twist the ball joint of the hip and then utilize the upper leg rotation to move the leg forward and do the same to move it back. There's a double jointed knee, no lower leg rotation, and then at the ankle it's hinged, moving the foot backwards and forwards, and it has a crazy ankle rocker pivot. Combining with that awesome hip articulation, this is him stood at its widest stance possible, still with both feet flat on the floor. Jean-Claude Van Damme, eat your heart out. Rounding out our trio, it's Vision. Reading from the packaging back, this extraordinarily powerful android may be the Avengers' final hope. That sounds more like a movie blurb to me. Words might have been better spent on explaining just why Vision is unfamiliar looking here. In case you're curious, I've switched to a black background so he better stands out. Vision is a character that in Marvel Legends continually seems to get screwed over in one way or another, so some might resent this relatively obscure vision of Vision, because we get this before we're yet to get a truly perfect classic one. No resentment from me though, as this is from a story arc I love, Vision Quest, which began way back in West Coast Avengers 42, in which the government disassemble Vision and he ends up being rebuilt without his original synthetic skin, explaining the chalky look, and also without his emotional matrix. And that made him a ghost of his former self. And into my collection it follows hot on the heels of the not, but certainly more classic looking Vision from the Hulkbuster wave. Interestingly, that one was pictured on its packaging back with two fists, but came with just the one and a giant open left hand. This newer version has those two fists, yet on the packaging back has an open palmed left hand. Curious. Also gone is that blue shading from the packaging back, just as well as the comic art of Vision in this form, more typically used yellow shading. And here in practice we get clear plastic with white paint sprayed on in places, the spray making for some interesting graduation from the white into the transparency of the plastic, most noticeably on the cape that fades away seemingly into nothingness. It's a fittingly ghostly effect. Of course the paint isn't perfect, it's taken some chips here and there, and special care needs to be taken with this, as I imagine this white is primed to pick up coloured scuffs from the paint deco of other figures, so likely not one you want to leave bumping around with other figures in a drawer or at the bottom of a toy box. Taking a closer look, and I'm pretty sure the two Visions share the same head sculpt, it's noticeably deformed on this new Vision though. If you follow the contour of the top of the head, it's clearly more raised on this side. Maybe the absence of his emotional matrix explains the shrunken half, I don't know. Plus it has that hip wobble I've noted on a few Bucky Cap figures of late. Worthy of note is his tootsies. If you're a customizing type, whether it be Kazar or a classic Namor or something else, Marvel Legends feet with toes are hard to come by, so good to add these to the arsenal. Now looking at articulation, his head rotates side to side, it looks down a real decent amount, burying his chin into his chest, and looks up a real good amount, which is just as well. If you've got a flight stand, you could get him into some nice flight poses. At the shoulder, his arm rotates, it moves up this much, there's upper arm rotation, then a double jointed elbow. The wrist, his hand rotates and it's also hinge, moving down and up. He has rotation at the waist and an ab crunch which moves this far forward and then this far back. At the hips, his legs move out to the side this much, they move this far forward and then they move this far back. There's upper leg rotation, then a double jointed knee. There is lower leg rotation at his mid calf, and then at the ankle it's hinged, moving backwards and forwards, and there is that great ankle rocker pivot. Yet with his cape you can't take advantage of that pivot, as its length doesn't allow him to adopt a wider stance, and unfortunately it is made of quite a stiff plastic, so isn't pliable enough to bend backwards. For me, having the fondness for the story arc that led to Vision looking like this makes this the best Vision ever, but I think the relative obscurity of this look will prevent other people from seeing it in that way. But if not the best Vision figure ever, it's probably the best Iceman figure we've ever got. So all things considered, and the previous Legends Target set ended up heavily discounted. I saw some folks on Facebook sharing pictures of it with price stickers as low as $15. Will you be holding out for a discounted price on this set? It's a dangerous game. Target might have learned from that, and perhaps this set won't be as plentiful, or perhaps this trio represents stronger character selection. What do you guys think? For a closer look at the previous Target set, click the video on the right, and as ever I sure would appreciate it if you could give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe for more, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.